So I'm happy to have here today Olsi Nika from EcoAlbania, and he's the founder and executive director of EcoAlbania, an NGO that deals with the protection of natural ecosystems in Albania. He has more than 10 years of work experience in civil society efforts to shape environmental policy and promote nature conservation. He has worked with government officials advocating for environmental legislation and furthering transposition of the EU acquis into national legislation. That's also quite a challenge. His expertise especially lies on securing biodiversity and protecting aquatic ecosystems through monitoring marine and freshwater quality. And he's trained biologist also. I guess that helps a little bit in this monitoring approaches. He holds a Master's of Science in Environmental Biology and is currently working towards a PhD in Conservation Biology at the Faculty of Natural Science in Tirana, in Albania. Welcome, Olsi. So, and with him on the panel today, and I'm very happy that you're here, is Klara Bosch, and she is an environmental activist and spokeswoman for Fridays for Future in Munich. And at the end of September, they brought several thousand people again to the streets in Munich in the context of the global climate strike, whose motto this year was "People not profit," as far as I remember. So that's also a good introduction to questions of environmental justice and climate justice. And in July 2021, the Munich City Council decided to set up a 15-member climate council. That's a very interesting format that was popping up in the last years in different kind of cities, in different world regions, I would say. And this council is intended to provide critical and constructive advice to the city council and administration on the way to climate neutrality by 2035. And in addition to the members from politics and administration, there are also 3 representatives plus deputies from science, business, and the civil society in the council. And Klara is one of them. Klara, I'm happy that you're here. Please come to us.
Thanks for inviting me, this time face-to-face. Actually, I'm also very happy to be here. I will try to share our little story. It's not that short though, but I'll try to sum it up. What is actually the fight we've been running for, as you mentioned, for almost 10 years now. So what you see here is that's the logo of the project, of the campaign, Save the Blue Heart of Europe. And it also has another story behind how it has been designed and where it was the inspiration. So it was again in my river, I would say, in the Vjosa, in the southern Albania. But why the campaign was this is the upper part of the Vjosa. So that's the middle section. This is really something extremely unique in terms of nature conservation aspects. But why the campaign was called like that? So, and how it has all started. Actually, it has started in 2010 even. And for the first 2 years, it has been a kind of silent part of the campaign, I would say. So what you see here is the riverine network of the Balkan Peninsula. And what we did together with our partners was initially assessing 35,000 kilometers of rivers in terms of hydromorphological aspects. Now we have an update to the same region with 80,000 kilometers of rivers. And out of this assessment, we clusterized, or let's say categorized, the rivers in 4. Actually, there are 5 different classes, but the second and third, it's not a really clear line to divide them. And what you can see as the first class is the rivers which are pristine or near natural rivers, meaning only on the hydromorphological aspects. I'm not adding in the water quality like pollution and other stuff, but a pristine river hydromorphologically means whether a river it runs into its natural riverbed without any severe or significant intervention of human nature, of human impact, let's say. And definitely one of the best models here is the Vjosa River in Albania. And I mean, as an indicator, this was the blue, let's say, color on the map. And as I mentioned before, the class 2 and 3 is the rivers that are really slightly modified, so they can easily get into the first class with some restoration measures. And the orange, I don't know if it's orange in your screen, but it might look orange, is a class 4, where the rivers are extensively modified, like many of European rivers nowadays, as a matter of fact. And the red color is practically not a river anymore. Like we have taken this as an example, the reservoir of Trina River in Serbia, for instance. And what we did, we put all these outcomes of the studies in the map, and you may see the graph like here. So 30% of the rivers were or are in the category 1 or the class 1, and 50%, half of them, are in the category 2 and 3, which means that almost 80% of the rivers are still either on the best natural state or really a good condition still, because also the class 2 and 3. And what we did then, we put all these in the map, and you can indicate by here that there is a lot of blue in Montenegro, a lot of blue in Albania. And if you compare the same with the same, let's say, conventionalized colors, the Balkan Peninsula and Germany, as we are here, you will see that there is a very, very less green in Germany. And that's why, and the same goes for all European countries. And if you put the full map of Europe, you could see that the blue arteries that are still in the Balkans. And that's why we call the campaign Save the Blue Heart of Europe. And why save it? Because I will come up a bit later. We did another study regarding the biodiversity. So regarding the fish and mollusks and insects, and there are still studies going on. And basically, these are just some of the findings from the Vjosa River. For instance, this one here is a species even new to science, which means has been discovered in the Vjosa for the first time and exists nowhere else in the world. So basically, the Balkan rivers, a part of being pristine in terms of hydromorphological aspects, are still the home to the last, or let's say to the last endemic species of the freshwater ecosystems in Europe. And these are the numbers. I don't want to really bother you with numbers, but there are 69 endemic fish species, for instance, of the freshwater ecosystem in Europe that are still existing in Balkan rivers and nowhere else in the continent, etc. However, that was the good part of the story, and we did another assessment. What you could see here with the black dots are actually the hydropower plants, which are existing ones, in the same river stretches. So just as a comparison, but this is not the worst, because the worst is what is coming. So if you see the red ones and the little yellow ones, the yellow means which hydropower are under construction, and the red ones are at the brink. So either they are in the early planning phase, advanced planning phase, but there are plans to be built. And we are talking about roughly 3,000 of them. So 3,000 dams in a very small scale area, I would say, regarding the freshwater ecosystems. And let me get back to this. So you see there are figures here, but I would really like to emphasize these 10% and these 49 species. The 49 species are really dam-affected ones. If all these dams have been built, we would have to forget about 49 fish species. And they will definitely go to extinct. And these are 49 out of 69, if you see here, which means that they are also endemic. And it's not that they will disappear in a way or get extinct from this part of the world, but as they are endemic, meaning that they are the home ranges in a certain restricted area like the Balkans, they would be globally extinct. And we did a lot of studies regarding the species that are dam-affected species, and there were a lot. And that's how the campaign get it to add, we managed to add the word safe, because we are talking about really unique ecosystem, freshwater ecosystems, which are really endangered from this dam tsunami or the uncontrolled hydropower development. And of course, I just mentioned that there were 3,000 of them, but we have a few people with restricted capacities, restricted both human and financial capacities, so that's why we undergo into another process, which has been the prioritization of capacities, basically. And that's why our campaign has been mainly focused in these three key areas, like, the Sava River in the northern Balkans, the Vjosa in the southern Albania and Greece, and the Radica, let's say, in the Mavrovo National Park in North Macedonia. If I would make a zoom into my country, so this is my country, it's also infected in a way by the hydropower, and actually this is, I would say, the worst in terms of density per hydropower per, let's say, river in kilometers. So we are talking about 740 of dam plants to be built, that are built, under construction, etc. And what is the really interesting fact about this is that 90% of these dams are the so-called small-scale hydropower, which practically are giving nothing to the energy budget, but their ecological footprint is huge. Because there is, it's not only the powerhouse, which is usually calculated on the so-called environmental impact assessment reports, but there are the access roads, and we are talking about really remote areas that you have to build the access road from the beginning, which means a lot of deforestation, and then comes the transmission lines and all the rest. With practically hydropower that is giving almost nothing in terms of, definitely in terms of energy-wise, but also in terms of social aspects, because their rate of employment is really, really low. And here is another fun fact, that 39% of these dams are projected, being constructed or constructed already into the network of the protected areas, which means that there isn't any difference. And if you would ask me for what is this rate or this figure for the Balkans as a whole, it's 40%, it's 49%, gets practically half, which means that nobody is really, nobody cares whether it is a protected area or not. And let me do another zoom into the Vjosa. So that's the beach section of the Vjosa River. It's actually something unique, something which is missing nowadays in the European rivers, because practically most of them, they are just canals on their mid section. And this is really a huge area. It goes up to 3 kilometers wide with dynamic channels and islands, and which provides actually home to all these endemic species, because it's a really diverse mosaic of habitats. And also in the Vjosa catchments, there are planned for like there 45 hydropower plants to be built. Most of them are in the tributaries, like this one here, which is also in a national park, and you can see, how big the destruction is also for small-scale ones. And they definitely would have caused irreversible impacts in terms of functioning, natural functioning of the ecosystem. And they usually are using the weak EIA, so environmental impact assessment report, so they go through, and without any public consultation. So I will try to be short now regarding our campaign. So it has been also a curvy road in all these 10 years with ups and downs and with different channels, which means different paths that we have taken. But very, very shortly, these have been our main pillar. Is it working? Yeah, it's working out. So, as I mentioned, the scientific research and the data gathering, closing the knowledge gap has been one of the first steps. Involving the artists and the emotions into the campaign is also another thing. Communication, it's really a strong tool by using the media, using the image, like you mentioned. Interfering into the policy for rivers and for nature conservation in general. Lawyers for rivers is another pillar, and definitely is the activism. So we have tried to build up our campaign by using all these pillars. Let me start with the first one. So activists for rivers, in all the campaign, it's not only EcoAlbania, we were mainly responsible for the Vjosa part alone, but as I mentioned, this is a campaign which is run at the same time in all the Balkan countries, so we are having a wide network of organizations that are working as activists. Okay, but if you are getting bored, I can quit. All right. So that is one of the power of image. So this is the river that screams in Sarajevo, for instance, where we have the one of the river summit a couple of years ago. Never underestimate the importance of the local river defenders. This is the lessons learned, and this is what I would like to share with you. And support them. And we've been doing that a lot with our local communities in Vjosa, like this one here, for instance. This is a small community which have been affected by a large dam in the Vjosa River. So there have been organized different protests like this one here, blocking the national road, like you may indicate, tying up with chains, the wheels of the cars. And also coordinating different protests countrywide in the capital, in Tirana. So that is absolutely, the coordination of the activism is something that has made the difference. So scientists for rivers, yes, it's. I'm a hydrobiologist myself, freshwater and marine hydrobiologist, and before the campaign, I would say that I'm quite sure that the scientific community would have known more about the Amazon, basin rather than for the Vjosa. So it was really unexplored, especially the aquatic, let's say, aspects of the ecosystem. And from then on, it has been a lot of scientific work going on in the Vjosa and the tributaries. We have been established, or let's say we have been catalyzer of establishing cooperation between different universities of Tirana, in Albania, let's say, and abroad in Germany and Austria. So they have been self-organized in this one here, for instance, which is a river symposium. They have even, can I have a bottle of water? So they have been self-organized. We have initiated also the establishment of a research center in the midsection of the river in a small town in Tepedena. But actually, that's the photo I like the most, because what you can see here is a bunch of renowned experts of river science having a press conference, an unusual one, in an island in the middle of nowhere, practically, in the Vjosa. And this is something that is, thank you. This is something that it's not happening every day. To see, for instance, this is a professor emeritus from Vienna University. It has been one of the promoters, Fritz Schimmer, his name, but it's really hard to see him holding a megaphone and sharing the findings of their research work in a press conference. So this image gives, for me, this gives me the following message is that for the Vjosa, it has been something really extraordinary on the scientific aspects, because the scientists not only have researched, prepared their publication, made their publication, but they have really spoken up for the Vjosa, which is something unusual for a scientist, let's say. And we have tried to make the science entertaining for the people, like this one here in the cinema in Tirana. So that's Bob Nyman, a US river expert, talking about the benefits and the importance of the free-flowing rivers in terms of ecosystem services. And the same thing in the tributaries as well. So that has been really a strong part of the campaign. Then, Artists for Rivers. I would say that there are two ways and two reasons why artists are really important to the campaign. First one, because they do have their niche of followers, called nowadays, or people that they influence, you know? And maybe they can influence also the decision makers, because in the end of the day, they are also human like us. So they do have emotions, and we have to play with their emotions in terms of lobbying for the appropriate decision. And there is the Artists for Vjosa, but also in general the Artists for the Balkan Rivers, which is a large group of different artists, starting from the local level to the national and to also the international one. So far we have conducted so many paint exhibitions, photo exhibitions, big concerts like this one here 5 years ago in Tirana in the main square. So the message was hands off Vjosa actually behind, and it gathered more than 3,000 people in the Tirana capital. And then this year in June, more or less the same artist came again together in Tepelena by the Vjosa River, having another concert with a slightly different message, because also the circumstances has changed a little bit, meaning and the message was Vjosa forever, which is meaning to preserve the Vjosa forever. So from the local to the world known that have been supporting also the Vjosa. And it's not only DiCaprio, there are other I would say renowned celebrities like Edward Norton and Ellie Goulding. There's a long list. Lawyers is another pillar, also equally important, because we are in a democratic system, and if the court decided, that's the end, so everybody should respect the decisions. So we've been initiating the Lawyers for Rivers. It has started in Vjosa with 3 or 4 lawyers. Now I'm very glad to say that there is a pan-Balkanic network of more than 15 lawyers suing the government against the construction of the dams, especially the ones which are doubtful projects. And by legal, it's not only domestical, it's also using the conventions like the Berne Convention, the Aarhus Convention, the Energy Community Treaty. So there are all already open cases for the Vjosa case. And actually, it's also an interesting story, because we in Albania, together with the local community, have been the first one ever in the Albanian history to file a lawsuit against the government on an environmental case. And after several hearings, the court proved us right, and that hydropower is cancelled by the court. We have also, over the years, developed toolkits and recommendations how to use the law and what is really the power of law in the campaigns. Policy as well. Now, we've been hearing yesterday from the Bankwatch. We have been cooperating a lot with them, and we have tried to interfere into the development banks to exclude especially the small, or to discourage the construction of the small-scale hydropower, for instance. So, yeah, that's the message. Start small, but you have, in the very beginning, have to think big. So the vision, it must I would say, been set up properly in the very beginning. And communication, it's it's a lot of work of communication. In our campaign, we have 4 or 5 even mainly girls, ladies, that are dealing with the communication. But also the map, like this one here, communicates on its own. So you make the problem visible, you make the beauty visible. And of course, it has been difficult for the media to get, let's say, the media attention in the very beginning. But as far as we got the first article on Spiegel, for instance, then all the media came, and it was a flood, believe me. And now it's really getting out of control to really follow the media. I would like to really mention this because this has been a kind of game changer for our campaign. So what you see here is the inauguration of the research center Fritz Schimmer, without him knowing, and it has been a really big surprise for him. Is this old man here in the middle? And there is the mayor of the city, and this guy with the blue jacket is the former president. So by then it was a president of the republic. And he has also initiated a kind of different stakeholders roundtable in Tirana. Unfortunately, no one from the government showed up because of the political clash between him and the prime minister. But we took the very best advantage of this, of course. And as soon as he was posting, supporting the science for the Vjosa and the proper sustainable decision, then the prime minister has retweeted back, let's say that, hey, guy, I'm the one who protects the Vjosa, So it was a big surprise also for us. But actually it was not just a tweet alone, but it has also, after that, it has also, the National Agency for Environment has refused to give the green light or the environmental consent for another large dam on the Vjosa. Of course, we took the advantage, as I said, and we delivered to the Ministry of Tourism and Environment the full package proposal to proclaim the Vjosa as a national park, including its tributaries. We got no reply, of course, for months and months. And in January 2022, so this has happened you may indicate it was the mask period, so it was in February 2021, and in January 2022, the government decided, being really under pressure, to establish the nature park for Vjosa, which is a IUCN lower category, it's a category 4, and it hasn't included the tributaries. So this is where we are now. What we did in terms of communication, we ran another campaign, which was also prior to the elections campaign, and it was the Vjosa National Park now. Basically, what we did is that was just a message, and we wanted to give or to have this message very close to the most renowned places in Europe and in the world that are renowned, let's say, for the cultural heritage. And the message was that if we are not really willing to giving up our cultural heritage, why are we so easily giving up for our natural heritage? And the Vjosa is really a natural heritage, not for Albania alone, but for Europe, because it is actually the last free-flowing river remained in the entire continent. And what you can see is that there are more than 14 cities. It has started in Tirana and then in Berlin, in Paris, but it was worldwide, this Vjosa National Park now. And in June this year, the government said, okay, that's enough. So we have to find a mediator to talk to these guys. I mean, we have had meetings in between, but not really to negotiate for the national park. And then one of our, I would say, supporters, not financially really, but in terms of communication-wise, which has been the Patagonia. Patagonia is a brand, outdoor brand based in California, but their philosophy of nature conservation is, I would say, really adorable. And they came in to play that role of mediator and to, let's say, have a common agreement with the Albanian government for the establishment of the national park. So this has happened in June this year. There's the Albanian Prime Minister and there's the Minister for Tourism and Environment. So, you know, out of nothing, they feel so happy that they are preserving the Vjosa now. And we were also, that's Ryan Gillard, he's the CEO of Patagonia, and that's the deal. So it has been a public commitment now from the government, and after that public commitment, there is already a large team of experts, mainly international ones, that are working for the planning phase of the Vjosa National Park. The aim is to have it by the end of the year, the decree that will mean really the establishment of Europe's first wild river national park. So that's our I would say, bullet points, main achievement. So we managed to stop 2 of the large dams in the Vjosa. So open case into the conventions, Berne Convention and Aarhus Convention, case to the energy, community treaty. The government decided for the nature park and now they're committed for the national park. That's how our story ends. So that's a little video, but I think it's okay. You can find it in the internet. It's already. It is also nice sound. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olsi. What an impressive campaign, and we've seen so many different kind of actors that you also managed to integrate into your campaign, one after the other, and group them, and then partially take over. And yeah, it's very interesting to see this evolution of a campaign and who's getting on it. And I guess there were also getting some problems at some point if people get on and they have their own agenda and so on and so forth. But it's impressive how far you got with that and all these years of campaigning also internationally. So talking about internationally and locally and campaigning brings us to Klara. Klara, yeah, tell us something about, should I just like, I'm gonna take this off at this point, okay? And,
yeah, is it on? Yeah, it's on. So I hope you can hear me. Yeah, I'm very glad to be here today. I do not have a presentation, so I'm sorry for that. But I will tell a few things about Fridays for Future globally, what we're doing, and then a little bit of our group here in Munich. But first, I want to thank you. I learned a lot at your presentation. I have a lot of questions. Maybe we can discuss them later. Yeah, so to Fridays for Future. Fridays for Future is a global movement that started, I think, in 2017 with the first tracks from Greta Thunberg. I think you know her. And then it became very, very quick, a very big movement all over the world. And pupils, basically get on the streets and strike for climate justice. Yeah, and here in Munich, the first climate strike was, I think, in 2018 in December. So in 2 months or so, we celebrate our anniversary, and the special thing from Fridays for Future is that that young people go on the streets and that the protests are organized by young people, and that's also I think a very big problem for us, because we it's a very big task, and it's very difficult for the young people to be engaged on this high level. Yeah, here in Munich for example, we in the last strike in September, on the 23 September, I just the first time in my life I built a stage, so something like that, and we have to do this all on our own, and yeah, that's a big task. So that's a special thing about it, and how we organize. We have this global group internationally, and they decide when we start the new Global Action Day, and then they think about a motto, and this time it was People Not Profit, and then it gets communicated to the countries, so to Fridays for Future Germany, for example, and then Fridays for Future Germany communicates it to the cities, and then it comes to us. And so there's, it sounds a little bit top down, but it's also very, very bottom up, because everyone can come to Fridays for Future and participate whatever you want. So here in Munich, for example, we have one time in a week we have a so-called plenum. Everybody comes together, and there we discuss special questions. We have to make a decision about it, and but also every opinion is weighted equally, so nobody has any might or something like that. But also there's disadvantages about this, because you don't have any accountability or something like that. So many pupils come and stay, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks and then go again. So it's also difficult to get the people more involved and for a long time engaged. But that's so. So we organized, and I think another interesting thing about Munich is that we have globally and international and German, there are more and more groups getting more to more to the anti-capitalistic actions and actions of civil obedience, I think. So, for example, they glue on streets or something like that. In Munich, we're a little bit more, we are talking to politics or something like that, to politicians, and are more cooperative. And that's also why we are in the climate council here in Munich. I'm sitting there, I don't know, and it's quite interesting, but also very difficult, because the process is not that nice. We get the drafts where we have to make a proposal about it, and we get them very late, so we have not very much time to make our statement, and then the politicians decide about it, and we are like that. So we didn't have enough time to go really deep through it, and and also it is we just have the feeling that it's not like they see our statements, but nothing happens to them. So we're here, but not very active. We are very reactive, and that's a little bit we are not that content till now. But I think in the future it will get better, because here in Munich the Greens and the Social Democrats are the build the government, I say, and they know about the climate problematic, and they very often, they do good things, of course, and so they are open for our critics. And yes, I think it gets better, but we have to every time push them so that it gets quicker and quicker. And yes, so on the locally side, I think the awareness is there, but it has to be implemented, and that's the difficulty here. And globally, that's also very difficult for me, and a little bit, always when I think about it, threatening, I think, because there nothing goes towards a climate neutrality world. If you look what actually should happen on a global level, we're far away from it. And so there we have to make a lot of more work, but I think that's very difficult to get to those big players here. So we're working more here on a locally base. Yes, and I think that's what I have to say. I hope you could follow me a little bit. My English is not that well. Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Klara, for this insight into also the challenges of working local, global, the structure within Fridays for Future, which has grown in the last years tremendously, and then organizing these kind of evolutions and leading the campaigns and also implementing it locally, and then also the consequence when you are integrated in the political decision-making processes, then you switch roles, and a formal implementation doesn't come automatically also with certain power to change. So one has to stay critical at every step of this evolution of a movement and its goals and so on and so forth to check where it can be improved and so on and so forth. So very interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, so we start a short discussion round here on the panel, and then we right away open up for questions. And you can also ask, as you said, we can also ask within the panel. I'm also happy with that. So first question, that's again the framework, environmental justice. So let's start with Olsi. Is this term, it became, from my point of view, more and more visible. Coming from the US, it became more and more visible also in Europe, also because climate justice as a term is circulating. Did you feel, after looking back 10 years on the campaign, that this concept became more and more present? Or would you say, we do it anyways. Every environmental action is social action for us too? Or what's your perspective on that? Yeah, sure.
I didn't get that. What concept?
Environmental justice.
Justice. Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, you can baptize. You can put whatever name you want. It's now it is environmental justice. Previous, I don't know how it is called, and I don't know what is going to be called next. The message is, and really the essence is really simple: saving, conserving as much as possible. And every meter of rivers to be saved counts. That's the thing. You can tell it that it is, because even the hydropower booming, in a way or in another, it was us, not me, 40 years ago, because I was not even born by then, but it was us, the environmentalists, pushing that the hydro is green, the hydro is renewable, let's orient all the policies and investments to the hydro, because it's definitely much greener, let's say, than the coal, for instance. However, if you would ask me 40 years later, I would say that, and I'm really competent on saying this, there is no other energy sources that harms the environment and the societies that hydropower does. Because they are simply destroying what is left. And it is released, I think 1 week ago, the Living Planet, WWF Living Planet Index. It was a couple of years ago, because it's every second year, it was like 69%. So the freshwater ecosystems are declining by 69%. So they are really getting to extinct. And now it is, how's it working at? And now it is 80%. So that's what I'm saying. Every meter counts. And we are talking for freshwater ecosystems, for rivers, which are occupying not more than 5% of our planet, but they do host at least 45% of the biodiversity we know so far. So it's simple as it is. So preserving the nature, and they provide a lot of, we call it ecosystem services. They provide a lot of basics for prospered life for the human beings. So it has been like this since the Mesopotamian times, and it is. All the big cities are located by the river, or by the lake.
Okay, yeah.
So
environmental conservation work is also social work in that sense. And yeah, of course.
Of course it is,
yeah.
yes.
Klara, what is your perspective on environmental justice as a concept? Is this more present in the last years for you? So bringing together this climate environment aspects with the social aspects and so on and so forth.
So Fridays for Future has this term climate justice. So we have a call on the demonstrations. We say, what do we want? Climate justice. And so that's a big term for us. And I think the one important thing here is that it's the word justice means for us mainly there's the focus on justice between the global south and the global north, because in history, so the countries in the global north just are more accountable, on the climate crisis. So they just produce because of the industrialization more emissions than countries in the global south. But the countries in the global south do more suffer on the cause of the climate crisis. And so this term, we use this in context of this. But I think it's also very important to see the social dimension. So, for example, now here in Germany we have this upcoming energy crisis, and many people can't pay their bills anymore for their energy, for example, or for their food. And we are organizing together with other organizations who are focused on social things, and we are doing their protests, their strikes and protests, because to set the focus on that climate justice or real climate solutions and real climate policy can only be social. And that's a second thing of this term, I think. And with environment justice here, I have to say, Fridays for Future, I think, does too little focus on the biodiversity crisis. So climate crisis and biodiversity crisis, of course, are linked very much together. But we, in the main focus of the the society of the world. There's only the climate crisis, and we often forget about the threatening biodiversity crisis. So we have to get more attention also on this theme, and here I have to say that I didn't know about that the water power plants are so bad for environment, and have a so big impact on locally ecosystem. So I know about it a little bit, about the very, very big dams like in China, the one I learned about it in my school, but I thought so little power plants, water power plants. I thought they're good because they do not have a big impact, and hydropower is a renewable energy. But here's also the point that when we think about energy transitions, so we mean that we get back from the coal and the fossil fuels to the renewable energies. But also there's the dimension of energy efficiency and energy sufficiency. So we have to reduce our energy. And so here on the cards we see, it looked for me like the governments want more energy, so that the economy can grow and that they have more energy to use, and that's the wrong way we're going here. We have to think about how we can reduce our energy, and yes, that's the thing that come to my mind. Yeah.
So adding biodiversity to the radar, and also thinking about consumption patterns. Okay. Also, you wanted to say right away something.
So environmental justice or climate justice, and I want to stop this to the second one again by bringing in the attention what we have directed 4 years ago to get rid of coal and all the other dirty ways of getting our energy. It's an endless story for sure. So it will never end if we don't really change, the way how we think, change the mindset, in a way. Because some decades ago, just in the name of the climate justice, we have conducted the climate crimes. Like, really harming, you've seen the freshwater species. It's not only the species alone, but it's the real degradation of the freshwater ecosystem that are giving us so much. Even in the financial terms. So there are now models that are calculating what is the value, let's say the value of a single kilometer of river, just for one ecosystem services, for the self-purification of the water. And it goes hundreds of thousands of euros. So river does it on its own, that gravel part that we've seen in the Vjosa, because all the gravels are being covered by biofilms, algae, that are consuming the material, the organic material for us. The water is pure, it's drinkable. So I'm just giving this as an example. So as soon as the humanity, and especially the policymakers, it doesn't have to be green, environmentalist, all these, part of this bubble. They just need to be visionary enough when they're adopting their policies to set up for the development, to set up the ecological limits. If we don't set up this, it definitely the curve of exponential growth would not stay. It's simple.
Yeah. No, of course, absolutely. Yeah. We are living beyond our planetary boundaries in many aspects, and of course, this is also systematic thinking is necessary on a climate level, on a biodiversity level. There's circulation of water that we are changing as humans in the life of the Anthropocene, if you want. So we've been becoming really a geological force that changes a lot of streams in the Earth system, and so exactly. So that dimension has to be taken into account. Otherwise, we're running again and again into these problems, regardless of how we frame it in the end. So I'm gonna open up now. If there are first questions, let's go for the first questions. And can we move this mic? Is this microphone on? And then we can, so that whoever wants to ask a question gets it from there. Is this manager? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Then we're gonna start with that.
Okay, so you can hear me, that's fine.
Maybe
my name is Niels, and I'm also here for an organization or association which is called Zukunft Gestalten in Boston, Herzegovina, and I'm also a journalist, working as a journalist. So that's why I'm actually also having a question to Olsi, for example. I was astounded by the map that you showed from Albania and from the Balkans and from Europe, as you said. I would have been interested to see a global map, actually, but never mind. You can later on.
There is, of course, a global map. And what you can immediately emphasize there or indicate is where are currently, let's say, the hotspot of hydro buildings. So they're a little bit in Africa, still in the Amazon, it's a big mess, in India and the Balkans. These are the reasons.
What I'm thinking is actually that what you've got, Vjosa, for example, is actually a natural resource. There are natural resources which states and countries can make global money with it, with a company which supports it and explores it and everything, and sells it on the free world market. And in this case, it's complicated because it's a natural resource you can't really sell. But we all benefit from the resources that you've got there. I see Fridays for Future, for example. That has global aspects in circumstances of climate justice, as you said. And I'm wondering, have you got any funds, any money gotten for your projects from Berlin, for example, from the German state, from Brussels? Are there any connection to those sources, or also concerning globally Amazon, as you said? That's another point. I think also Brazil has a lot of natural resources which can't really be sold on the open market. And concerning the climate conference, which happens every November every year, in that case. I wouldn't be astounded if they sort of find a way to get money for their natural resources, as I call it. I try to make my question short. have you got any EU funding or anything like that?
My answer is short, no.
Why?
Why? I don't know why. Because actually we have had the necessary funds to run the campaign already. So it has been mainly private donors. So not really the EU funding on all these instruments of financial support for the civil society or whatever so far. So that was, and as a matter of fact, to be totally honest with you, they are extremely bureaucratic that you can't run a campaign like this one if you are based or if you are somehow dependent on the EU funds, because usually the EU funds are the elephant in the room. We all understand that. So there is a big money, but their impact is so little because it gets to through all these bureaucratic labyrinths that you need only to report and report and report, and actually not being with the people, and really understanding and tackling the real problem, where the real problem is. So that has been the reason. I don't know if I covered your question, but that's my answer. Well, that's my answer.
Okay, that's an interesting question. How to fund campaigns and so on and so forth. I think like now. Sure.
If I go into the detail, we are organizing a press conference with the scientists, and we need certain efforts to get there, and then we have foreseen a date. But for many reasons, we have to postpone it, we have to do it elsewhere because it gets more attention, it gets the bigger effect. But in an EU project, if you have written that you have to do it in a certain date, in a certain way, then in order to get this green light for the changing of the last minute, it has to go to the headquarters and then to the Brussels, and then you wait for months and months, and the effect is gone. Short, in a single word, it is missing the flexibility. That's it.
Yeah, but it's much harder for you it's also harder for you to find the finances. I mean, there is not so many rich private people who are so open to this kind of subject. So
it has always been. It's not a secret that I can say that you see half of the human resources of the big campaign. So it was just 2 people working and still working like crazy. It is. But that's the only way if you want to have the impact. Because we simply can't change the rules, the bureaucratic rules of the EU funding.
Okay, Klara also had questions, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and just something to add here. And of course, actually, it shouldn't be necessary that the EU just funds civil projects. So, for example, here in Munich, the city council asks us how they can help us, and we are like, so we are protesting against your policy, and you're asking us how you can help us. So what the fuck? And so actually, it shouldn't be necessary that there's civil engagement against their policy, and and people there who are engaging voluntary and working not in the bad cases to a burnout, and that actually shouldn't be necessary, but we live in a world where it's necessary.
Okay, any other question? Otherwise I continue. Yeah, can you speak into the microphone because we're recording and these questions.
I would just add that regarding the funding from the EU, they also filter your campaign. So everything that you want to post, that you want to put into the media, they need to approve, and they don't allow. So you don't have the flexibility, you don't have the freedom to actually do what you want to do, which is also a problem.
You might have the freedom, but it's difficult to get the green light for it. Like you said, it's for the postages, for the changing of the work plan. It's not working. It works perfect for the projects, but not for the campaign.
Yeah.
It's totally different. Campaign is a living. It's something really that you have to develop it by doing. When we started, the aim was, for instance, what we committed in front of the donor. Here is the Vjosa. That is the beauty, that is the uniqueness. We are here. So if you found us, we are here to make everything possible to not allow any single dam in this river, and we will work to establish a national park. This has been the commitment in 2012, and we are now in 2022.
22, yeah.
10 years later,
Yeah.
and we have achieved that. You know.
Exactly. So I want to switch from the funding question because I think everyone who's active and applying and so on and so forth is really much and gets really stressed because of these kind of questions. Anyhow, I want to go more to the content of campaigning again. So we have people, we have animals, we have landscapes. So what are the challenges and pros and cons of like staging animals or having the opportunity to let them be part of your campaign? I mean, I remember these debates on climate change campaigning in the 90s and 2000s. So we are only showing the ice bear on the sinking ice and so on and so forth. So maybe we are like, this is not a broad perspective on biodiversity then, because we are just looking at large mammals and so on and so forth. So how did you approach also these experiences of the past? Not only visualizing animals and landscapes, but then also people. How can you make people part of your campaign and visualize their life and so on and so forth when we are talking about environmental justice and environmental and the social? Maybe I start with the Klara and then to Olsi.
Yeah, I think that's good. So we see our last hashtag on the global strike was people over.
People not profit.
Yeah, people not profit. So yeah, I think this hashtag shows it very good that we're trying to make clear that every day people are dying because of the climate crisis, and the causes are now also now a very, very big threat for especially countries in the global south. And yeah, we're trying to emphasize that and bring this to the social awareness, and that's very difficult because it's so far away for the people who are living here. And we're with this hashtag, we're also questioning our system of capitalism. So we're saying the concerns and businesses who have their main sits in countries in the global north shouldn't have the right to do projects that are very, very that affects very much the societies in the global south. And that we're also trying to tell with this hashtag. And of course, that's very difficult for people who live in here in this system and are privileged and profiting from the system. That's very difficult to get these people behind this hashtag or behind our fight against the system. So that's very difficult, I think, for us to get these people involved and tell them, so you're also affected. And so we're trying, of course, also to here in Germany also to search for projects or things where we can show that people here also are affected. For example, that last year we had a big flooding in western Germany in the Ahrtal, and we're just saying, okay, when the climate crisis comes, like it is now, like the scientists say, so that we have a 2 or 4 degree warming in 2050. Such floods like the floods in the Ahrtal are not a century catastrophes, but they coming every year. And so we're trying to make also aware that the people here are also very affected, but we also, that's the difficult one to show that, we have to widen our blick, and today the people also are very, very affected, and that's very, very, very injustice. And so to this hashtag, a little story.
Okay. Olsi, visualizations again.
Beside the hashtags, Well, first of all, there is a bunch of laws that are there to protect certain species and biodiversity. So they do have rights. And we are talking about laws, which means in a judicial language, that it's equally the same. The law for human rights and the law for preservation of biodiversity. They are equally, they are laws. So it's not the constitution which is on top and then the laws and bylaws. And it has to be respected the same. And this, we have tried to emphasize this one in the courts, in our lawsuits. Communication-wise, actually there has been the easiest work for our graphic designers. So you can't make it more beautiful, these species that I just showed you. They speak on their own. So they speak, it's just, and the beauty of the landscape. So it has been, of course, a real challenge. Initially, I can remember, because the technology by then was not that advanced as how it is now. So there was a big drone, and we put a camera on in order to have the big picture of the Vjosa on its mid section. But nowadays it's easy enough. So, and then the people, how we got people engaged. So we got the information first. We've been with them, communicating, sharing all the information with them, making them really clear what the hydropower would have been for their everyday life, because most of the communities would have to be resettled or leave their homes. No matter that their homes would not be drawn into the reservoir because they were a bit far away, all the arable land, which was the basic of their living, would have been drawn in. And globally, let me just bring you one figure. There are 90 million people that are being affected or resettled by the hydropower. So that's why I'm saying that the hydropower are really the harmful ones. And when it comes to the biodiversity, if you would like, I can also, explain in our vocabulary. So what they do is disconnecting the migratory ways for the species, which means disabling the fish to access the maternity, the restaurant, the pub, whatever. That is it. And we are talking about the longitudinal connectivity, which is lost due to hydropower, and the lateral connectivity. So that's what I'm saying.
There is no hydropower. How to say?
Sustainable.
The ones that are sustainable.
Who are the ones that are sustainable?
I don't know.
I don't know anyone. No hydropower is sustainable. No hydropower is sustainable. Forget about all these fish leathers and e-flows, and it's like you are breathing with your nose, but if I cover your nose here, you still breathe, but you are under stress. So this is what we are doing to the rivers, reducing the amount of water, or narrowing the roads. That's it. They can survive, of course, but not for a long time. And I can explain you later if you are really interested in it. But these are just inventions of that bubble of experts that are paid in a way to come up with these, I would say, inventions of fish ladders and all these mitigation measures for making the hydropower sustainable. And that's, in addition, they're even making the investment bigger and trying to convince the mass, the community, that look, we have undertaken all the necessary mitigation measures. No, there isn't any.
But it's not. It's not.
If I would say it in one message, and it has been another campaign we run, all dams are dirty. That's it.
The big one or the small one?
The small, yeah, it has been all this idea that the small is beautiful, but the result is the same. If the large ones are creating the reservoirs out of rivers, meaning that total transformation from a lotic ecosystem to a lentic one, and these are the terms, ecological terms. So from a running water into a stable ones, which means that all the parameters are drastically changed. The turbidity, the oxygen, the temperature, everything, and the suspended material. The small ones are cutting down in pieces, so they leave the water, the riverbed dry. In both ways, they disconnect the migratory ways. So the result is the same. It's just a matter of where do we benefit more energy. That's something totally different. But that energy is dirty.
And just like how long it's like we have some of the brains which are for a long time, maybe 30 years, 40 years, or even more, the big ones who just to say they are creating the difference. So how long it needs to would be now strange to, let's say, to have this big, one of the biggest, to where if you put it down, then you change, so to say, again the biodiversity, or
that's what I'm saying. And I mentioned hydropower are in most of the cases causing irreversible impacts. So you can't get back the river anymore. It's absolutely difficult. You know that one pillar of the Green New Deal is restoring 25,000 kilometers of rivers. So they want to get the river back now. But it's absolutely costly, it is absolutely difficult, and it needs half of the time. So you can do all the efforts now, but you will see the results some 20 years later. So forget about this generation, maybe the next one. And if at all.
Energy comes from hydro, no? Yeah, so what would be the alternative? Solar, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Albanian electricity, I would say, to be clear, electricity production is 98% on hydro, and very small PVs. So, we can open up this debate.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're not obliged to talk only about water. It's fine.
No. We can open up, but it's another discussion. So, shifting from biodiversity in freshwater ecosystem to the energy, which I think I feel competent because I've been working on this sector due to my campaign. So it is, like you said, it's 98% of electricity that we are producing comes from the hydropower, but that is not sufficient because in net terms, we are still an importer of energy. And this covers, it's a fluctuation because as soon as it's based on hydro, we are depending on the rainfall and precipitation mainly. So these 98% that is on the production, it covers from 60 to 80%. In the best year, like in 2010, it has been also exported. Very few, but exported. And that's one thing. Second thing is that in all these capacities that we have installed, we have exploited somehow only 45%. Even if we exploit another 40%, which is a real potential, because you can't explore 100%, you simply can't, it's theoretical. But even if we exploit another 40% and make it 80, 85, let's say, our scenarios, our calculation says that we will still need to import the energy. So, meaning you can ruin all the rivers, but in a dry period, all the reservoirs, all the little dikes, empty. So you still need to import. However, there is a slight way where to invest, because 5 years ago, our net loss on the grid and, without paying and all these, the loss, let's say, of the energy, it was like 27%, now it's 17%, so it is improved. But this is just a loss, technical loss. If you calculate the low performance on the consumption, also on the production, so it gets to 50%. And if you invest to this direction, maybe there is no need to build any hydropower anymore. But if you would ask me, I'm 100% convinced that this 40-45% exploitation of our potential on hydro is more than sufficient to keep the balance of another source that will have to come, to the system, which definitely has to be sustainable in a way, clean and green. So it can be solar, it can be wind. This is also, but first of all, you need to invest on mitigating the loss, the technical one, B, investing on increasing the efficiency and the performance on the production, meaning digging the reservoirs which are filled up with sediments, etc. And on the consumption, meaning all these measures of the thermal isolation and stuff in the buildings. And Albania, Greece, southern Italy are really consuming the energy for nothing, losing practically the energy. Because they are not prepared for short, really, really strong winters, and they are losing a lot of energy. But that's something totally different. If you would ask me for the Vjosa, I would have closed this debate. So there are so far roughly 80,000 dams in Europe, but it's only one single big river free-flowing left. Adding another one as a dam would be 80,001 dams. But giving to the Europe and to the world the first wild river national park is something totally different. And Vjosa is already known for the second and will never get known for the first. Never.
Maybe we can come back to the river topic. I have a question about water power plants. I don't know if you have thoughts about it, but the EU taxonomy, the green taxonomy, there, the water power plants. How you think about the critics? Is the taxonomy good, or are they also labeled as sustainable, and they should get out of the taxonomy, like atom and gas? What do you think about it?
Be simple. Forget about the taxonomy. You can put whatever name you would like, and even if you would ask me like this, 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, there was a resolution of the UN that are considering the hydropower above 60 megawatt installed capacity not green anymore. So they might be renewable because simply the water is flowing and through the turbines is going again to some riverbed, because we have always also been witnesses of total diversion from one river basin to another, which is against laws and regulations of EU and other international conventions like the ESPO and Helsinki Convention. But it's not a matter of how to name it and how to frame it, It's a matter of really the politicians and the policymakers have to consider that the hydropower, yes, might be sustainable, but it's dirty. I mean, not sustainable, might be renewable, but it's dirty. So it's nothing green about the hydro. It's nothing green. Of course, it's not emitting a lot like the coal fire plants does, but they are doing as well the emissions. So the reservoirs are contributors to the climate change because of the methane and other organic gases that are emitting due to the consumption of the organic materials, which is happening underneath the reservoirs. So there are contributors as well.
And of course, the infrastructure, setting up the infrastructure. There's a
But
lot of
the infrastructure
involved,
and
to
radiation of the power lines is the same, and everything else is the same. But they are simply destroying the nature and the local communities. And they are the main factor for the freshwater biodiversity loss. Simple.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's actually the point I wanted to make. So if we label this green, this means in the EU taxonomy that for investors, for example, they see, okay, here in the taxonomy there stands hydropower plants are green, so I invest in them, and then I can say, yeah, I have a green investment. So I think that's very wrong, and I think that's not on the attention of, for example, Fridays for Future, because we just made a campaign against atom and gas, but not for the hydropower plants. And so in the EU taxonomy, they're strict, or I don't know if they are strict, but they are critic things where the hydropower plant have to fulfill this, but I can't I can't say if there are enough or if just the energy form of hydropower plants should be out of this taxonomy, like atom and gas.
I get it. It was also part of the presentation, so interfering into this policy. It was not only the development banks, it was also the EU policy. I participated myself in so many meetings in Brussels, in the Parliament and in the Commission. And as a matter of fact, it is changed. So we have been, let's say, the catalyzers of initiating a process from the EU to really identify in the Balkans the sustainable hydropower, and the experts came up with a long list of 300 of them out of 3,000. There were plans. So that was the first part of the initial stage of the assessment. But in the end, they finalized that there were only 10, because we were continuously bringing arguments that this one is wrong, that one is wrong, etc., etc. It's totally, it is like, so it's not just a matter of policy, it's just a matter of as I said, of a mindset. By saying that hydropower are not green, I'm not saying that, no hydropower should be built. It can be built. If it was me to take the decision, I would totally shift it, avoid it. But it can be built. It's just a matter of naming it. That's not the green one,
Yeah. Okay, so this.
Yeah, I think that's very important for me also to realize that this is not in the awareness of the most of the people, and I would say also included me and other Fridays for Future activists, and so I will take it with me, and on our European network I will ask if there are discussions about it. So yeah, I'm very, very glad for this impulse.
Great. Thank you very much for this. This is, of course, a perfect ending point for our panel. If this kind of exchange actually sends impulses in various directions and so on and so forth. And I think that we have been seeing a lot of different insights into campaigning, integrating certain actors, which role do they play. Also, the funding scheme was, or funding opportunities and challenges was another issue. And I think, it was an interesting discussion, great visuals, and impressive campaigning. And thank you very much. An applause for the panel, please. And thank you for your questions.